A terrible, terrible roar filled the night air, and a hideous beast came crashing out of the jungle. It was Kong. The monster stood up on his toes, pounding his chest, and roared angrily at the people on the wall. Then he saw Anne, and his roaring stopped. The natives waited, holding their breath, hoping that Kong would accept the woman of gold. He carefully freed her wrists and picked her up with great gentleness. There was a loud crack, and a bullet whistled past Kong's ear, but he didn't notice. It seemed his only thought was of his new treasure, so he didn't see the gate open or the men who slipped through. Kong gave another mighty roar, turned, and carried Anne into the jungle. Jack Driscoll had fired the gun. He appeared to be the leader now. "I'm going in to get Anne back," he said. "I'll need 12 men. Who's coming with me?" He and Denham chose 10 of the men and left Inglehorn in charge of those staying behind in the village. The search party set out past the altar, following Kong's path of destruction through the jungle. "Hey, look at this," yelled one of the men a while later. "Look at this incredible footprint." Each man shivered. They found more prints and followed them. It was hard climbing through the thick, dark jungle and difficult to see anything. At last they heard the welcome sound of birds singing. Daylight was coming. The sun rose and they found themselves in a clearing. In the undergrowth ahead of them, something moved. One of the men gave a startled cry of fear, and an enormous creature came crashing out of the jungle straight towards them. "Quick!" shouted Jack. "The bombs! When I throw, everyone hit the ground!" As the monster got closer and closer, Jack hurled a bomb straight at it. There was an ear-splitting explosion. The men dived for cover, and still they heard the footsteps getting nearer, but slower. Then the footsteps stopped. The ground shook as the gigantic creature fell. When they felt sure it really was dead, the men crowded around for a closer look. "It's a dinosaur," said Denham. "These things have been extinct for millions of years." "Not on Skull Mountain Island," Jack replied. "Kong must be some kind of prehistoric animal too. This place could be swarming with monsters." They picked up Kong's tracks again, where the trail began to slope down, leading into a valley wreathed in fog. Before them was a small lake. The men stopped at the water's edge as they heard loud splashing ahead. "Kong's swimming across," said Jack. "We can't do that. With these bombs and guns, we'll have to build a raft." The sailors worked quickly, cutting down trees and tying them together with vines. When they had finished, there was barely enough room for them all on board, and the raft lurched perilously from one side to the other. But they managed to get most of the way across. Then the raft shook as it hit something just below the surface. The thing moved. "Dinosaur!" cried Denham. A huge head rose out of the lake, and the raft was tossed high in the air. The men were thrown into the water and struggled frantically towards the shore. Jack Driscoll got there first, and as he turned round he saw the dinosaur coming after them. The men caught up with him, and they all tried to run through the swamp towards the jungle. On and on they battled, hearing the monster closer and closer behind them, but eventually they reached the safety of the dense undergrowth. All except one man. They heard a horrifying scream, shuddered, then plunged deeper into the jungle. Soon they came to a deep chasm. The only way to get to the other side was over a log bridging the gap. Jack Driscoll climbed onto the log, and the others followed. Driscoll had just crossed when they all heard a terrible roar. In front of them was Kong. Jack grabbed a vine and climbed down the ravine, where he hid in a shallow cave. Denham, who was last, managed to scramble back to the other side. The rest were trapped as Kong lifted the log and swung it back and forth. The terrified men desperately tried to hold on as long as they could, but one by one they fell, screaming to their deaths. Kong reached a great hairy hand into the cave where Jack was hiding. Jack slashed a finger with his knife, and Kong howled with anger. Immediately there was a loud answering scream. "Help! Help!" It was Anne. An Allosaurus was coming towards her. Kong forgot about Driscoll and rushed back to save Anne. The dinosaur was even bigger than Kong, with long, sharp teeth and powerful hind legs, but Kong was a clever fighter. Again and again he tricked the other beast into moving, then darted in with vicious blows or bites. Kong leapt onto the creature's back, pinned the dinosaur down, and tore apart its jaw. In triumph, Kong threw back his head, roared, and beat his chest. Then he carefully picked Anne up and set off deeper into the jungle. Jack Driscoll and Carl Denham faced each other across the chasm. "You go back," shouted Jack. "Get some more men and more bombs. I'll follow Kong, and when I find him, I'll signal to you somehow." "Okay, Jack, be careful, and good luck." Denham turned, ran back towards the village. Following Kong's trail was hard work, and Jack was hungry and tired, but the giant beast seemed to go faster with every step. Jack realized that they were climbing up the back of Skull Mountain. "He's heading for home," thought Jack. It made sense. Kong was the only animal on the island who could climb, so up here he was safe. Jack climbed wearily on, and finally, as he neared the top, he saw Kong entering a huge cave. So this was his home.